woman, there are moments when the very place you call home becomes the most dangerous battlefield. You can lock your doors, close your windows, and guard your possessions. But what if the true danger is not a thief from the outside, but a silent enemy on the inside? God's urgent warning is that safety is not defined by walls, nor security by routine. Safety is defined by the presence of His Spirit, and the absence of His Spirit makes even the most beautiful home unsafe. Many women confuse comfort with safety. Just because you have lived in a place for years, shared meals, shared laughter, and built memories does not mean that place is still aligned with God's plan for your life. Comfort can become a false shield, and sometimes the enemy doesn't break in. He is already sitting at the table. He doesn't need to steal the keys when he has already been given access to your emotions, your peace, and your focus. And God is exposing the truth. Not every environment that looks like family carries His blessing. Every voice in your circle has been assigned to uplift you. Some are strategically placed to weaken your confidence, to silence your boldness, to strip you of the vision He gave you. The most painful betrayal is not from strangers. It is when the familiar becomes the enemy of your purpose. That is why God is urgently calling you to open your spiritual eyes. True safety is not brick and mortar. It is not the comfort of routine. It is the alignment of your spirit with the voice of God. A woman who anchors her identity in Him cannot be shaken by the storms of her environment. She may live in a house, but she dwells in the secret place of the Most High. And when she learns that her true sanctuary is not built by human hands, she carries safety within her wherever she goes. God is warning you: when peace is absent, discernment must be present. The atmosphere of your home reveals the atmosphere of your spirit. If conflict, fear, and tension dominate, it is a sign that His presence has been pushed aside. Do not ignore the uneasiness you feel in your spirit. That is the whisper of God alerting you to danger. That restlessness is not your imagination. It is heaven warning you. The strength of a woman is revealed in her ability to rise above what seeks to control her. Sometimes you must let go of what you thought was your source of stability, because God is calling you to protect the vision He placed in you. Your confidence is not tied to a location. Your purpose is not tied to approval. And your destiny is not tied to people who cannot discern your value. A home is meant to be a sanctuary, a place of peace, and a dwelling where God's presence abides. But when it becomes a cage, when it becomes a place that suffocates the spirit and silences your voice, God is saying, guard your heart, guard your purpose, and make Him your true dwelling place. For the safest home is not the one you build with hands, but the one you carry in your soul when it is aligned with His divine order. Safety is not always defined by locked doors, walls, or familiar faces. Many believe that as long as they are within their own home, they are secure, but God reveals that danger often hides in the most trusted places. The walls around you cannot protect your spirit if what exists inside those walls is slowly draining your strength and peace. A woman must understand that battles are not always external. They can rise from within the very environment she depends on. The arguments, the silence, the subtle words that tear at your confidence, these are more destructive than any intruder from the outside. You may be physically safe, but spiritually under attack. You may be surrounded by family, but feel like a stranger in your own dwelling. When God warns that your home is not safe, He is not speaking only of physical harm, but of the unseen battles that seek to destroy your faith, your joy, and your clarity of purpose. The enemy rarely knocks at the door dressed as a threat. He often disguises himself in the routines and relationships you overlook. That is why discernment is more vital than locks and keys. It is possible to sit at the same table and yet be fed poison through words that discourage you, demean you, or minimize your potential. Safety in God's eyes is not the absence of strangers, it is the presence of His peace. A home without His presence is vulnerable, no matter how well decorated, no matter how organized. The Spirit of God is the true shield of your dwelling. If His presence is missing, then even the place that should restore you can exhaust you. That is why He calls you to recognize that safety is more than a physical condition. It is a spiritual reality. Comfort has a way of deceiving the heart. When things feel familiar, when the routine is steady, and when nothing appears outwardly threatening, it is easy to assume you are safe. Yet comfort can blind you to the silent erosion of your spirit. A woman can live in the same environment for years, tolerating things that quietly eat away at her confidence, convincing herself that as long as she has a roof, as long as she has a routine, she is secure. But the truth is, comfort can be the most dangerous form of bondage because it lulls you into ignoring the warning signs that God is trying to show you. Many homes are filled with laughter on the outside, yet heavy silence on the inside. Smiles cover wounds, routines mask emptiness, traditions hide the absence of God's presence. This kind of comfort keeps you still while your purpose is slowly suffocated. It creates the illusion that everything is fine when in reality, the peace of God has been pushed out by complacency. False peace is more dangerous than open conflict because it allows you to accept what God never intended you to settle for. The greatest danger of comfort is that it convinces you to stay where God is telling you to rise. It numbs your discernment, makes you tolerate what is toxic, and blinds you to the urgency of His voice. When comfort replaces God's leading, you begin to value routine more than revelation. That is why He sends warnings to stir you, to wake you, to remind you that what feels safe may actually be keeping you from His best. The absence of storms does not always mean the presence of peace. Sometimes it is the silence before destruction. One of the greatest deceptions a woman can face is believing that danger only comes from the outside. But the truth is, the most devastating battles often come from familiar voices within her own home or circle. God's warning is clear. Every person close to you has been assigned to build you, and not every word spoken in your hearing carries divine intent. The enemy is skilled at hiding in plain sight, and he often works through those who have access to your trust, your time, and your heart. It is not always the stranger who undermines your destiny. Sometimes it is the familiar presence that slowly chips away at your confidence. The conversations that make you doubt yourself, the criticism that disguises itself as concern, the subtle resistance to your growth. These are weapons that the enemy uses from within the very environment you thought was safe. When God warns you about your home, He is exposing the reality that some attacks are invisible to the natural eye, but destructive to the spirit. Discernment becomes essential because without it, you will confuse sabotage for support. You will believe the ones who silence your voice are protecting you, when in truth they are afraid of your rising strength. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who openly opposes you, but the one who cloaks their opposition in love, duty, or familiarity. God allows you to see this so you can guard the vision He placed in you. Your purpose cannot afford to be silenced by voices that refuse to recognize your divine assignment. The warning is not to fear, but to awaken, to recognize that the enemy often hides in what feels normal, and that true protection comes only when your ears are tuned to God's voice above every other. True security does not come from the house you live in, the money you save, or the people you surround yourself with. It comes from your alignment with the voice of God. A woman can live in the grandest mansion, with every comfort provided, and still feel unsafe if her spirit is not anchored in Him. Likewise, she can live in the simplest dwelling and yet walk in perfect peace if the presence of God fills that place. Safety is not about the structure. It is about the spiritual covering that only God provides. When your life is in alignment with His Word, carry security within you. His promises become your shield, and His guidance becomes your protection. No environment can shake a woman who knows that her ultimate dwelling is in the presence of the Most High. But when you build your confidence only on external things, on people, possessions, or positions, you leave your spirit unguarded. The walls of a house may protect your body, but they cannot protect your heart from words that wound, or your mind from lies that weaken you. Only God's voice can establish that level of safety. Alignment with Him creates a discernment that alerts you to danger even before it comes. His Spirit will disturb you when something is out of order, when a person's influence is toxic, or when an environment is draining the purpose He placed inside you. Without that alignment, you can mistake danger for safety and bondage for security. That is why God warns you not to measure your safety by what you see, by what you hear from Him. His voice is the anchor, the compass, and the shield that turns any place you enter into holy ground. When peace is absent, it is not something to overlook or dismiss. It is a divine signal that something in the atmosphere is not aligned with God's will. A troubled spirit is often the first warning that heaven gives you before danger fully reveals itself. Many women silence that inner stirring, convincing themselves that it is just stress, imagination, or fatigue. But the absence of peace is rarely random. It is the whisper of God alerting you to pay attention. Peace is one of the greatest indicators of His presence, and when it leaves, you must become alert, not passive. The human heart longs for stability, for comfort, for familiarity. But if what surrounds you constantly drains your spirit, God is showing you that this environment is not safe for your purpose. It is possible to smile outwardly and yet feel a constant unrest inwardly. That unrest is not your weakness. It is your discernment. It is the Spirit of God telling you that something is wrong, that words are being spoken against you, that your spirit is being suffocated, or that the enemy is working silently behind the scenes. Peace is not the absence of noise, but the presence of God's order. When peace is missing, it means something has taken its place: fear, manipulation, conflict, or spiritual resistance. That is when discernment must rise. Instead of settling into the false belief that this is normal, you must ask God to show you what lies beneath the surface. A woman of wisdom understands that unrest is not to be ignored, but investigated through prayer and spiritual awareness. God uses the absence of peace to protect you, to guide you, and to prepare you to act with wisdom before the hidden danger becomes destruction. Strength in a woman is not measured by how much she can endure in silence, but by her ability to rise above the forces that try to hold her captive. There are times when God calls you to release what feels familiar because it has no value, but because it no longer aligns with the future He has prepared for you. What once gave you stability can become the very weight that slows your progress. The challenge is that many women confuse letting go with weakness, when in truth, it is one of the greatest demonstrations of courage. It takes boldness to step away from environments that no longer honor your spirit. It takes clarity to separate yourself from voices that consistently diminish your worth. It takes confidence to recognize that your destiny is not tied to those who cannot see the value God has placed inside you. The strength of a woman is not in clinging to everything that once brought comfort, but in protecting the divine vision within her, even if it means standing alone. When God begins to shift your path, He often calls you to rise above attachments that keep you small. If you cling to what no longer carries His blessing, you risk suffocating the very purpose He birthed in you. Rising above does not mean abandoning love or compassion, but it does mean refusing to sacrifice your calling on the altar of familiarity. The power of a woman's strength is revealed when she chooses destiny over comfort, vision over fear, and obedience to God over the expectations of people. That decision transforms her into a vessel that cannot be controlled by her environment, but instead becomes a force that shapes it. A home was never meant to be a place that traps the soul or suffocates the spirit. It was designed to be a sanctuary where peace flows and purpose is nurtured. When God established the idea of a dwelling place, it was always meant to mirror His presence, a refuge of rest, a center of growth, and a space where His Spirit could dwell. But when that space becomes filled with conflict, manipulation, or silence that breaks the heart, it no longer reflects the sanctuary He intended. Instead, it becomes a prison that confines rather than a covering that protects. A woman must discern the difference between a house that holds her body and a home that nourishes her spirit. If the environment robs her joy, silences her voice, and crushes her vision, then it has shifted from being a dwelling of peace to a cage of limitation. God never created you to live bound in a place that diminishes His work in your life. That is why His warning comes with urgency. To guard your heart and protect the spirit He placed inside you. Your true home is not built by hands, but by His presence. When His Spirit is welcomed, even the smallest dwelling becomes a palace of peace. When His order reigns, love, clarity, and safety flow like rivers within the walls. But when His presence is pushed out, no structure can provide security. A woman of wisdom must learn to build her home first in her soul, anchored in His word and filled with His peace. From that foundation, she transforms any physical space she enters. Her home is not defined by bricks, but by the atmosphere she carries. And when that atmosphere is aligned with God, it becomes a true sanctuary. Woman, hear this clearly. God is not calling you to live in fear, but to live in wisdom. The warning is not to paralyze you, but to awaken you. Your home, your environment, your relationships, none of these can guarantee your safety unless His presence rules within them. Do not confuse routine with peace. Do not mistake familiarity for security. Your true refuge is not a building, not a person, even the comfort of tradition. It is the presence of God alive in your spirit. When you carry His presence, you carry safety everywhere you go. When you guard your heart with His word, no environment can destroy your purpose. When you refuse to settle for an atmosphere that silences your spirit, you declare that your life belongs to God and not to the forces that seek to diminish you. The strength of a woman is not only in what she survives, but in her refusal to live beneath her divine calling. This is God's urgent warning: protect your spirit above all else. Do not allow your home, your relationships, or your comfort to imprison the greatness He placed inside you. Rise with courage, align with His voice, and build your sanctuary in Him. For when He is your dwelling place, no matter what storms surround you, you will always be safe.